right. Good morning, everybody. I know the hour is early, but I'm glad that we could all be here today for our second subcommittee meeting. I want to welcome. I see that we have Mr. Kemmerer from the Attorney General's office. We have members from the Department of Labor here today, so I want to welcome them to the meeting. And we have the agenda. We'll have Laura take us through the bills. Again, we have some answers to the questions that we asked last time. We'll go through all that. If you all have a question, just let me know, raise your hand, and I'll call on you. When we have questions, we can ask questions of the staff as well, but just let me know, and let's go ahead and start moving through it because we have until about 9:30. I'm hoping we won't have to use all that time, but so Laura, do you want to take us through?
Sure. Mr. Chair, would you like to start with the study bill, House Bill 907?
Sure.
Okay. So I'm going to share screen with everyone so we can see the reprint. Just bear with me. I think I have too many windows open. Hold on. Let's see. Try this again. I apologize.
Mr. Chair, while
Yes, sir.
that, do we want to announce, or maybe we already did, who all of our guests are with us? I see the AG's office.
Yeah, we announced that the AG, we have people here from the AG's office, and we have people here from Department of Labor who are here to answer questions. And good morning, Vice Chair.
Good morning. How are you?
Good.
That's good.
So we're just getting started. We're starting with the first bill, House Bill 907. And Laura,
Okay.
getting ready to share her screen with us.
Okay. Can you all see this?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. This is a reprint of the study bill, the bill that Delegate Carey has introduced to require the Department of Labor in consultation with DLS to study and make recommendations regarding certain sort of broader reforms of the UI system. Delegate Carey has offered an amendment that would incorporate the elements of House Bill 1002, Delegate Charkoudian's bill, that had other study components. So in case the subcommittee wanted to move in the direction of having one standalone bill that sets up a study, this bill could potentially be the vehicle for that. So the Department of Labor would be required to study expanded eligibility for benefits for various types of workers, including self-employed individuals and individuals who leave their job for family reasons or due to job schedule volatility. The underlying language is being added by amendment and being brought over from House Bill 1002. The study would also consider the costs and benefits of increasing the maximum weekly benefit amount, including indexing that to account for inflationary change, the allowance that claimants receive for their dependents is called the dependent allowance, the income disregard for part-time work. The study would also encompass alternative approaches to the experience rating process, including the feasibility of establishing a waiver for benefit charges incurred during a UI crisis, and the potential methods for minimizing the impact on an employer's experience rating when the employer establishes a work sharing agreement with the department. So again, the underlying language is being brought over from House Bill 1002. The study would also include whether the state is appropriately applying the definition of employee to cover seasonal, temporary, and gig economy workers, and if needed, identify changes to assist some or all of the workers in receiving benefits. The establishment of clear standards for when an employee is entitled to claim UI benefits if the employee leaves a job due to various factors. And then
Laura, is the underlined language the amendment?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm just reading so you all understand what
No.
would be encompassed in the study, but the
Yeah.
underlying language is what's being brought over from House Bill
From,
1002.
I thought so, but wanted to be
The
sure.
only difference being the last item here, in item 6, the existing penalties for fraud and the need for enhancing or altering those penalties. There was discussion at the last subcommittee meeting from Delegate Impalaria about what penalties exist for fraud. And so this language here would sort of require the department to take a look at what penalties are in place and evaluate whether they need to be enhanced in any way. And then the last study item is the solvency of the UI trust fund. So there would be an interim report. Well, actually, backing up a little, the department would report monthly to DLS and the Joint Oversight Committee, and as necessary, consult with USDOL to make sure any sort of ideas that they would be putting forward would conform with federal program requirements. Delegate Charkoudian's bill had language that you see in subsection C here, line 18, that in conducting the study, the department would be required to basically look at a report from this National Academy of Social Insurance Unemployment Insurance Task Force from this year. And so there would be an interim report due to the Joint Oversight Committee this July. And the final report would be due to the governor, ECM, and finance on or before December 1st. And sorry, I see a couple hands raised.
Okay, yeah, I see that Delegate Arons, you had a question? And then-
Yeah, actually, I have more of a comment than a question. Everything I've read in this bill so far, there's nothing new in here that the unemployment has not handled in one form or another. The only difference I see between now and 2 years ago is that unemployment was overwhelmed. Every circumstance you've mentioned here, and I can't go up through the bill because I don't have control of it. But when you talk about how we're handling people doing what they're doing, hurt or whatever, these are things we've been doing for years. Unemployment has been hit with fraud. Unemployment has been hit with somebody getting hurt on the job. Unemployment's been hit with all these things. And I don't understand why we're having to do a bill to have them study something they've been doing for decades, if you will. The thing that I think unemployment has an issue with at this point is the fact that we were overwhelmed with claims. And I think the focus should be on how do we manage an overwhelming disaster like this again. But these things that you've mentioned up here, why you leave, how you leave, we've experienced them, we've done them, we've handled them, but yet we're having to do legislation to tell you to go out there and rethink what you've been doing for decades, because we ran into a pandemic and we put in a system that for some reason couldn't handle it. Isn't that so, Madam Vice Chair? I'll let you like that word, that phrase. So.
Comes from the Judiciary Committee.
Yeah. You know,
But that's my comment, and I don't understand what we're doing, and I'm kind of confused that we're going through this major revamping.
well, you know, I guess the thought from the committee from the Oversight Committee was that, you know, we have this system that was put in place instead, and it's dealing with issues that happened in the 1950s steel. I'll use that, the steel workers, and now we're into this new, you know, we have different kinds of workers, and this bill is to look at how we could reform the system to make it better than it was. So we have this bill that'll look at ways to improve and enhance the unemployment system that we've got. We also have the other bill that we're going to talk about today that you mentioned about the disaster recovery plan. And, you know, I guess with this bill in particular, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to look at ways to make the system better.
Okay, you know, it's just where I'm at, because we've been experienced, we have evolved to this point. Everything we're looking at didn't just happen. So that my concern was that this looks like, okay, I get it, but I have more pressing problems from where I stand. But okay, I get it.
And I understand what you're saying, Delegate, but we're gonna try to look at both of them. So it's like we've got this disaster plan that we want to. When you're in a disaster, these are the things that you should be doing. This, I want to take a look at the overall system and just see that maybe there are things that need to be done to take us beyond this. And if we get into the next, does it, you know, what does the system need to look like going forward? Does it need to be the way that it's always been? I guess that's kind of where we were with that.
This is a brand new system. I would think we bought state of the art,
Well,
up to grade, up, you know, best of class. I would think we did that in the beginning, but
well,
apparently we didn't.
you know,
Mr. Chairman, I'm good. I just wanted to make a comment. I'm not looking for a response. We can grab this. It's just an opinion. I'm not looking to debate this bill right now with you on it. It's just, I have a different urgency than perhaps others because of what I'm experiencing as a delegate and the overwhelmingness of what I've been put in my office because of this, I don't know, for lack of a better word, the system that was supposed to be state of the art.
and Delegate, you're absolutely right. And again, that's why we've tried to do both. We're going to try to look at the system and the issues that we have and how we deal with disasters. But we also, I think we need to do this future to look to see how we don't get there again. And, you know, the beacon system is new, but, you know, with technology, you know, you put it in day one and it's, you know, and it's beginning to be obsolete. So I think we need to look at this going forward. So with that, I won't belabor the point. I see that Delegate Impalaria has a question.
Yes, Laura, very old school and not hip with all terms. Can you tell me what gig economy is? I've never heard that term used before. What is gig economy?
The gig economy, as I understand it, is this economy where people are more self-employed, like an Uber driver, or they, you know, where they sort of have a bit more control over the work that they accept. So like the Instacarts, the people who are going to, you know, they may have a quote unquote day job, and then on the side, they have this little side hustle where they are doing other types of work to supplement their income.
Yeah, and I guess that would fall to me under the old school of self-employed side work, which if you lose your self-employed side work, you don't really qualify for unemployment. So that's just my comment. And I agree with what Delegate Ernst was saying, that, you know, for me, this study should be about the total failure of the system under this circumstance that we went through. You know, so my question was not, was there fraud? We know there was fraud. My question was, why wasn't people moved from the Attorney General's office, from the state police office to handle that fraud? And why were those claims being paid out? I mean, it's upsetting for me that I have one group of people saying, I'm not getting any returns. I got another group of people saying, people have been using my name and actually collecting, and I'm not unemployed. So that was my problem there. And the other problem, of course, is why aren't people getting phone calls back? I would like to see the study very narrow on not what are we going to do 10 years from now, but what can still be done to fix this situation that we're stuck in at the moment, and how can it be done immediately? And we're not getting those answers because those problems still exist right now. The fraud's still going on unchecked from what I can see, and the inability to return people's phone calls is still going on. And that's just unacceptable. I would like to see the study more narrowly focused to that rather than the broader situation. And the world has changed because, you know, I was here when the fund had really become unsolvent. And for the new members on this is a very, very fragile tool that we have. The balance between what money's there and what money gets paid out. If we want to build this fund, we'll bankrupt business. If we want to pay out this fund to everybody and their brother, we'll bankrupt the fund. So there has to be a balancing act. And I think we achieved that when we made the fund solvent again. And when I see paying out for gigs and for day workers and stuff like this, and people who just decide I really don't like my job, I'm going to leave it, that's going to bankrupt the fund, and that's going to bankrupt the businesses. And being here a while, this is a very fragile tool. It's not, a money dump. So that's I guess that's my statement. So.
And Delegate, if I may, I again, remember the workers, when we begin to address that, when I say we begin to address that, we look at that in the study, these workers are going to have to pay in to get out. So they're going to become part of the system. And in my mind, it's like, how do you make them part of the system? What do we do? Because
Well, we would like
really a
them to pay in.
business. Huh?
We would like them to pay in.
Yeah, well, they're going to have
The way
to.
this General Assembly is going, I can see them being paid without paying in.
Well, that's why the study, we wanted to look at and see how we would address them if we were going to address them. We were going to look at, you had talked about fraud and those things. Again, I see this as we need to have this look at the system to see how it's going to work, how it has worked, how we're going to get through what we're going to get through, and how we're going to move on and what we're going to do in the future. So that was, again, that's why this bill is trying to look at those things about what the system's going to look like, what it could look like a year from now, what it could look like 5 years from now, so.
And Mr. Chair, I was just going to add that I think part of the reason why the gig workers and others are a part of the conversation, or could be if you wanted them to be part of the study, is that many of those individuals are currently receiving benefits from the federal PUA program. So there may be a lot of Marylanders who have become accustomed to receiving unemployment benefits. And when the federal program dries up, the question becomes, is the state going to be there in any capacity? And if not, should it be? And so, I think that was also why these workers were potentially going to be a part of the study.
Exactly. That's right. Delegate Rogers, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I guess this is probably more for Laura, but maybe it speaks to some of what Delegates Empler and Aaron's were talking about. And I'm not really trying to mix metaphors, but I heard a conversation regarding combining parts of Delegate Carey's bill with Delegate Charkoudian's bill. And maybe that was and this is where I'm asking for clarification with respect to the study components, because I know in looking at her bill, there are there are fixes. There are fixes that relate to, returning calls. And that's not studying, that's a requirement. So is it just that we're trying to maybe merge the study elements of the two bills and have the other piece, some of the fixes and the healthcare pieces that her bill addresses stand on its own?
Well, I guess as Delegate Carey and Senator Klossmeyer as co-chairs of the Oversight Committee conceived it, there would be sort of a standalone study bill that would look at some of the broader reforms to the system and sort of decide whether those more substantial changes to the system are warranted. And so there are all these other bills that provide affirmative requirements for the department, like what you mentioned in Delegate Charkoudian's bill. But this bill, it would just be a study to get more information about potential reforms for subsequent sessions.
And I guess I'll end with a comment in that, anytime you come up with, when there are changes to the economy, when there are changes to the way things are being done, to Delegate Carey's point, you can't take an archaic 1950s, 1960s system and expect to apply it to, a new economy and not have, issues that are out there that go on unresolved or become problematic. So I think it's helpful to update what we're doing so that we can address the gig economy and then other aspects that are out there that we haven't previously looked at. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely. Yes, Delegate Adams.
So for some reason, I can't raise my hand. I've lost that button.
Oh, no.
I'm going to
That's
suffer.
fine.
All right, so let me just say this, and Rick sort of stole my thunder on this, and it's an important point that I want to reinforce. The word gig is slang, right? It's not codified language. If we're going to define what gig is so we can pass a bill that has the word gig economy in it, so be it. Look, in the world of business, there are sole proprietors, there are independent contractors, there are S corporations, there are LLCs, LLPs. Gig has zero meaning to me. And frankly, the genesis of that word is, okay, I'm playing banjo out on the street with a cup asking for quarters and dollars. That's not what an independent contractor and a sole proprietor is. And I think it's a derogatory term when we're talking about people that are making a living on their own and aren't employees. Now, if we're going to pass the bill, if we're going to take this study and make it work, I would frankly ask the committee to strike the word gig economy and replace it with the proper legal definitions of what it is we're talking about. Even an Uber driver is an independent contractor, right? Not a gig worker. And it's a small matter, I guess, in the whole scheme of things, but it's important enough to me to distinguish what it is we're doing. And the idea that we as a state, for the benefit of independent contractors, paid out UI benefits is a separate policy matter that went way beyond what unemployment insurance is all about. So to the fact that we're going to even study whether a independent contractor or a sole proprietor is going to receive in the future UI benefits, I believe I would strongly oppose that. Maybe the state has a rainy day fund and can, for a short period of time, pay benefits to business owners, but that should not be part of any study that relates to what we can and should be doing to change UI to incorporate them. Because let's face it, if you're giving UI dollars to sole proprietors and independent contractors, that's no longer unemployment insurance. That's something else. So I think it's an important distinction that I'd be willing to stand firm on, and just not a fan of this word gig.
So, Delegate, we can certainly look at the word gig, but I guess the question in my mind is, I guess what I'm not understanding is that, I guess the way I see it is that, we've been paying, these people are being paid now, and, there may be, I just think that we should look at, do we continue with that? And if they do, is there a problem if they're paying into the system? If they're paying, if I'm an independent contractor, I have my, and I pay into the unemployment insurance system to take it out, I guess what's the difference between that and you as a business owner paying in for your employees? Because me as an independent contractor, I'm self-employed, I'm going to pay in. And that's what I want to look at.
So how you just described that is perfectly fine from a study conversation. What I'm thinking is you're using the word independent contractor. I would strike any reference to the word gig economy because it's meaningless. It means nothing to me, and it shouldn't mean anything to UI. So that's my ask. We can move the study bill, and if it's the will of the legislature to pass it with the idea that we're paying to sole proprietors and independent contractors, so be it. Get rid of, for my input is get rid of gig economy.
Okay.
Another phrase for that.
All right. I hear you. I see Delegate Valeria has another question.
Yeah. And just to follow up on that. So if I'm a business and I lay my employees off and they start collecting unemployment, I'm still paying into the unemployment insurance fund, even though they're not working for me and they're getting paid. If I'm self-employed, how am I receiving a check because I can't make money and I'm paying in? How do you keep paying in if you're not working? And that's the problem with this concept of if they're going to be paying, well, maybe they will pay in, but are they going to keep paying in once they're collecting the check? And that's the question. And
exactly. You're absolutely right. That's the question. That's why we want to do the study. We want to have them look at that. And the question is, can they keep paying in? If they don't, how do you, how do you,
Right.
what does that look like? And that's what we're trying to get at with the study is just tell, hey, you know what? They may say, you know what? This doesn't work.
Right.
Okay. But we
Myself
looked
and
at
Delegate
it.
Adams have already come to that conclusion that this probably won't work. And we would like to see narrowly focused the study on what will work, what needs to be fixed as part of the system rather than a study to expand the system. And that's all I'm saying. So thank you.
Well, Rick, I would say that the study, if you allowed it to include independent contractors, a good study is going to come back and say impossible.
Right, and if
Just-
it does,
Yeah.
We've looked at it. So I guess what I would like to do is, we can work out the gig worker if you don't like those terms, but what I would like to do is I would like to move the bill forward if we can on this study. I mean, y'all let me know what you think.
Mr. Chairman, I would make amendment to the bill and ask the committee to accept it to find another phrase for gig economy. I'm open to suggestion, but instead of gig economy, it could say independent contractor.
Okay.
Yeah, it could say something like to cover seasonal and temporary workers and independent contractors.
So I guess I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Delegate. I can't, you're on mute.
Am I still on mute?
You're good. You're
Okay.
good.
I mean, I guess my thing, and this is to Delegate Adams's point, I'm not sure why we're trying to be all Shakespearean about, gig economy versus independent contractor. I mean, a rose will smell a sweet. So, I mean, what's wrong with economy? I mean, I don't get it.
Because, Mr. Chairman, because an Uber driver, while the slang in pop culture right now is to use gig, at the end of the day, they are an independent contractor that signs a contract with perform services. The idea that we would take slang and put it in codified language and statute, that's my point. And
Okay.
that's it.
I mean,
Understand.
but Mr. Chair,
You're muted.
You're muted.
Muted.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I was just going to say we can get into connotations, versus notations, but at the end of the day, as long as everybody understands what it means, I mean, I don't see that as a major.
Exactly. And
Okay.
and we can work out the language, whether it, like Laura was saying, and I see though that the Vice Chair has a question.
Well, it's really more in line with this. And I tend to agree that a gig economy, there are many people that understand what that means, but it's not whatever. But I think it's broader than independent contractors. And maybe the language should be something, to, seasonal, temporary, and other workers that have been paid under either the federal or state unemployed, received benefits under the federal or state employment during the pandemic. I think that's what we are trying to address. And then particularly if you look at sort of the Roman numeral 5,
Yep.
looking for clear standards for when an employee is entitled to, if they leave a job because there's unsafe working conditions or leave a job in order to guard against unreasonable risk, et cetera. So, maybe it's just a broader, if what we're trying to address is who got paid during this pandemic, then maybe some clause that could be added instead of gig economy, and other workers that were paid, through either a federal or state program. Because I do think sometimes the quote gig workers it's broader than just an independent contractor. Uber drivers are very specifically independent contractors, but there are other sort of transportation groups that aren't that way, that probably fall under temporary workers. But, like I said, I think if it's just broad enough to capture who got paid, that's what I
Okay. Laura, let's do that. I mean, I would ask the delegates, we seem to be hung up on gig economy. What about I don't know whether, like freelance jobs or something, but I agree with the vice chairwoman. I like this idea. I like her idea of being, broader, and you can say it without saying it.
Well, in a study, I think what she's doing is very responsive to my concern, to the extent that she's trying to address it. I appreciate the way.
I do listen to you, Delegate Adams.
Well, thank you. Well, the study I think will ultimately answer, if you say other workers, just remember there's independent contractors, sole proprietor.
I know.
And if they're not that, they're getting paid cash under the table. And so that's the only available options for what we're talking about in this sphere of non-traditional corporations, LLCs. So, I mean,
Okay.
workers can certainly include what it is I'm after, and it is frankly more appropriate for this for statute.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and we'll look at that. We'll put that. We'll work with the vice chairman to get the language in there, I guess.
Delegate Carey, if you wanted to have the subcommittee vote, you could have someone move, the voice amendment, and then just try to proceed that way. I don't know if that's how you want to proceed. but-
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I would move the voice amendment from the vice chair of the committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. I'm sorry.
I would
Delegate
like.
Aaron says his hand
I
up.
would like to ask a couple more questions before I vote on that.
Sure, delegate.
Have we ever? I'm a salesman. I'm a product guy. I'm a guy that's been out there. Everything I've had to do, I had to do. I'm a software developer. I've done these things, and I'm concerned that we're out here putting in legislation to do something that perhaps Beacon has already done. And I've never talked. When you look at a software system, it's supposed to be best of class, quote unquote, that we have. And we're not talking to Beacon on a day-to-day basis. They may have addressed this in a new version of their system. They may have people, because this is what they have to do. They have to sell their product to other states. They have to be out there implementing, installing, and adapting to the needs. And we're putting legislation in to put a work group to do what they should be doing as a company, because we are not the only state in the union that's experiencing these problems. And I agree with, I'll vote for the study, but I'm just sitting back saying this should be being done by marketeers. The Department of Labor should be intimately involved with that company, saying, we're dead, we're dying on this thing, we need help. What are you doing to address A, B, C, D, and E, which are the problems we're trying to address as a body right now, legislatively, as opposed to letting the market drive that. Those are the things that concern me deeply about doing these studies. We're going to do, the Department of Labor should be on this. They should be here with us, telling us, these are the things Beacons come to us. These are the things we know, because they are the experts. We are not the experts. We are people sitting down here as legislators saying, this is what I think we need for unemployment. And I am a restaurateur, realtor, and salesman. And I think that the experts should be involved in this thing, and Beacon should be at the table talking to us about that. If Beacon's the one we're using right now, and they are best of class, as we've been told.
But remember, the study's not about Beacon. The study is to look at the UI system. I mean, we're going to look at things like, the income disregards for part-time work. We're going to look at other things in addition to that. It's not about the Beacon system. It's about the UI system. We're going to look at the UI trust fund. We're going to look and see how to help, how to.
And Mr. Chairman, I'll vote for the amendment, but I'm saying that Beacon probably is addressing this, because Maryland is not the only person with that problem at this point. So, but I'm happy to move forward. It's just, I think I'd like to be talking to them too. I'd like to hear more from the person that actually knows these systems better than we do, because they are being hit by every state that they do business in with these same problems, I would guess. And I don't know that every state's going to address it by saying, I'm going to do my independent study while Pennsylvania does theirs, or whoever else they have. But move forward. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegate Jackson, you haven't.
Yes, Mr. Chair, is it possible to have the word gig economy in the intent and have the specific industries listed in statute. I just feel like, it's 2021 and, I think we everyone knows what a gig economy is. And so I think we should at least have that that word in the intent to kind of describe what we're trying to do here or study.
I guess we could take a look at it, but my only concern is that, gig economy, people tend to know that, but if there's a new terminology or something that comes out, I think what the chairwoman has offered is more of a general kind of a statement, which I think probably captures everything.
And Mr. Chair, I was just going to add, this is uncodified because it's just a study. So this is not going in the code. This is just a short-term study that will be completed by the end of the year. So don't think I can understand the desire to have the language reflect your intent, but as long as it's clear to the department what the legislature wants it to be looking at, I think that would be sufficient.
Okay.
Did we move that amendment?
Yeah,
It was
we're still,
Yes.
I guess we're in the debate. And Delegate Impellitter, you have a question?
Yeah, so
The amendment?
hearing here overall is a feeling that maybe we should have two separate studies. Maybe there should be a very narrow structured study on what is happening right now and how we're going to fix the problem going forward in the next 6 months compared to this study, which seems, how do we fix the problem going on into the future? And my problem is that I have a narrow study, like Ernst was saying, that, what's up with this beaking and why aren't they giving us the answers? And why isn't UI being forward with us, telling us what's really going on over there? And why are we still having the same problem? That's what I would like to see, a more narrow study on the existing problems we have right now, rather than how do we expand this thing, which I think it takes the people who are doing the study down a path they don't need to go down to this time. And maybe they should do that study 6 months from now. But I think
Well,
they should be giving us answers to most of these
Good
questions.
morning, how are you?
Delegate, this is on the amendment. This is on the vice chairwoman's amendment.
Oh, I thought we voted that amendment.
No, I thought that Delegate Aaron's held it up because he wanted to say something. So on the
Always
amendment,
Steve.
it's been moved and seconded on the amendment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So now on the bill, we were talking about, I guess the way I had envisioned, or we had envisioned this is, again, we need to look at now, we need to look at now, we need to look at a year, we need to look at 5 years. So I saw this as all one study, kind of, and I guess from the way that I've been, in my own professional career outside of the legislature, we've done studies, and, when we do studies for the FAA, we look at existing, we look at 1 year, we look at 5 years. So that was the idea to do that for this study. And these were topics that we wanted them to look at. And I guess my way of thinking, Laura, and tell me, I wanted to have some sort of, if there were other things that needed to be looked at that came out of this, or not, or as we started into this, well, you need to look at this or that that's going on right now, that we could do that the bill allowed for us to be able to look at what's happening now, to look at what's, and here's where we are, and here's where we want to go. So that's really what we envisioned this study to do.
Yes, and Delegate Carey, I think you had asked me to add a catch-all for anything that the department wanted to take a look at and provide recommendations to the legislature. So if you'd like, if the group is comfortable doing another voice amendment, I can add that to the reprint and send it out.
Yes. I would be fine with it.
Okay. So that's a motion to do that. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Or any discussion, I should say. All those in favor?
What are we voting on?
Oh, on the amendment, on the catch-all.
Yeah, aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. All right. So is there a motion on the bill as amended?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
Sorry,
Go
I was
ahead.
just gonna say,
Delegate, go ahead.
I'm
Just
sorry
as-
again. I'm at a
It's-
disadvantage. I don't have the hand raise thing. I'm still trying to figure that out.
I saw your hand.
I mean, it's a study bill, so provided that the department appears to be easily do the study, I would be generally in support of that.
Well, Mr. Chair, I was just going to say that the subcommittee has not yet moved you've moved the amendment to the amendment, but not the broader amendment
Okay.
that sort of engrafts the study language from House Bill 1002.
Okay. So we're going to have to, that's true. We're going to have to.
Move the amendment as it was read to us by council, the underlying sections.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion on that amendment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the amendment carries. Now, the bill as amended.
Mr. Chair, I move the bill as amended.
Second.
Okay. Now, Laura, I'm new to this. Do we take a roll call vote, or can we just vote normal like we've been doing?
You can
If you
just
could
vote
just
on
do a raise of hands or something so it's clear to me what the count
Okay.
is.
So all those in favor of the bill?
1, 2, 3.
Looks like-
4.
Looks like it was all of
Unanimous.
us.
Okay, 6. Okay, great.
Okay. All right, let's go on to, let me get my agenda here.
And while you're looking there, Delegate Carey, God, it sure would be nice if someone from that software company was sitting in front of us and could answer some of those questions that we have, such as how do you pay out claims to people who have never filed for a claim, who are 70 some years old and all of a sudden have credit cards showing up in their mailbox saying they got $4,000 or $5,000 for UI benefits when they're retired and not working, and how they don't catch that. Meanwhile, someone who has W-2 forms and pay stubs and has lost their job at a restaurant can't get an answer to a phone call. So I would love to get an answer to compare and contrast to those two. What's going on there? Why is that? So.
Okay. No, okay.
Oh, and by the way, when I have that problem, I don't have them call UI anymore. I have them call the Attorney General's office. Because when you got $4,000 sitting on a credit card with your name, one day someone's going to come back and say, you owe that money, even though it was stolen and you never touched it. So
Right, you have them call the
the
consumer.
Attorney General's office, Steve Wakamoto, with the,
Yep,
consumer protection.
yep. Okay. Do we want to do House Bill 908, Laura?
Sure. So House Bill 908, we don't actually have any amendments to the bill. Do you want me to share a screen with the bill text, or are you all
Sure.
generally familiar with it?
Sure, no, go ahead and do that.
Okay, let me pull it up. So the bill generally, while I'm pulling it up, expands and kind of codifies the department's current practice. So right now, the law requires the department to adopt regulations that set up payment plans when the state is in tax table F, which we are currently in, where the employers are paying the highest amount of taxes. What the bill is doing is saying the department would have to adopt payment plans regardless of what tax table the state is in, and would also have to provide greater flexibility to employers when the state is in the lowest tax table. And so that's essentially what the bill does.
Okay, and didn't Delegate Ahrens have a question or a comment at the last meeting about this?
Yes, and the department's response, let's see, I don't know if I have it. So Delegate Ahrens was concerned that employers may not understand that deferring doesn't mean you're no longer obligated to pay. And the department's response was that, you know, if an employer does default or does go bankrupt, cannot pay what they owe, it does become a collections matter. So it's, you know, they're still required to pay at some level. And the department provided specific information about the types of notices they provide when they enter into a payment plan with an employer. I know we have representatives from the department on the line. If
we have
Delegate
any
Ahrens wanted them
questions.
to elaborate.
No, if
Delegate
we're
Ahrens?
addressing it. If we're addressing it, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay.
My biggest problem with this is exactly what causes corporations to pack up and leave the state of Maryland. And they'll just fold, and good luck chasing them down for the money, because they're a corporation. They're going to open up in another state, make that product in another state with new employees. And that's the big, and these are the kind of things that hurt the UI fund, because they're no longer paying in. And that's why I said it's very fragile. There's a real tight balance here. And these type of maneuvers where you say everybody's just going to have to pay this no matter what, for it, okay, we got to pay it for as long as we're here, and we're not going to be here anymore. And they leave and they form another name and they go somewhere else. And while a restaurant can't do that, a lot of these manufacturers can. And that's, so I just want to, you know, bring that to your attention.
And Delegate and Laura, just correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, with this bill, what we were trying to do was to help those businesses that were having trouble paying their UI insurance, would be to develop a payment plan to at least get them on track, because, and I guess, you know, as businesses start to come back, I still think they're going to struggle. And we saw this as a way to help businesses make it through these tough times. And then, you know, and I guess we even had extended it and said, you know, if we get in, when we get into better times, if they struggle, they can then again work out a payment plan with the department to pay their UI taxes, because we don't want them going away. We don't want them packing up and folding and just, you know, so that was our intent behind this bill.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, just, you know, to point the subcommittee to the language in the bill, the payment plans, these are payment plans that the department would develop, and they would have to mutually serve the interests of the Division of Unemployment Insurance and the individual employing units. So if the division felt that a particular payment plan was not, you know, good for, or it would be damaging for the trust fund, I would think that that wouldn't mutually serve the interests and it wouldn't be offered to employers.
So that was our thought. I see that Delegate Adams, your hand's raised.
I got it figured out now. Thanks, Steve Ahrens. He and I have been. So generically, this bill is a pro-business, you know, bill. The concerns that I think are being raised are ones that I would have if I was taking advantage of a payment plan. Is if you thought, okay, well, I'm getting relief, and then obviously it's not relief; it's just a, you know, deferral. But at the same time, it appears that the state has the ability to, you know, decide for themselves what they will or won't do under this law. And I assume that one of the options would be, okay, the business doesn't need this payment plan. I assume there's some businesses that would try to take advantage of this that don't necessarily need it. I would hope that this bill gives the department some discretion in that regard. But with that being said, I I don't see this as a terribly controversial piece of legislation. We already did this under CARES Act, didn't we, under a similar sort of opportunity?
The relief, the governor's relief act has deferral for certain smaller employers for the first 3 quarters of the tax year. And then it authorizes the secretary to allow for deferment next year for the first, few quarters. So there has been some sort of relief in that way for smaller employers. But this would just sort of codify and augment what's in the statute for payment plans for, the department to enter into with employers.
I mean, Mr. Chairman, we'll have other bills that I'm going to have some struggles with. This is not one of them. I would move the bill.
Move it favorable?
Yes, I'm moving favorable.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the bill? I can't see everybody.
Yeah, let me stop sharing screen, sorry.
There we go. Okay, seeing none. All right, all those in favor of the bill, raise your hand. Okay, all those opposed? Looks like it carries unanimously.
Okay.
All right, let's,
Delegate Jackson had his hand up. I think it was for a question.
I think it was for voting.
Yeah.
I think that's how he raised his hand.
I thought that was the way I was going to do it, but I
First
would.
time I've seen that.
Works for me.
I got a
Is
thumbs
that
up now
correct?
too.
Is that right, Delegate? There you go. He's got a thumbs up. Is that right, Delegate Jackson? You were voting for the bill?
He's muted.
Yes.
Yes, okay, that's what I thought. Okay. Let's do House Bill 1143, which is the, hey, look at that. Is that the clap? Big hands?
I'm messed up now.
We showed him how to do something we probably shouldn't have done.
Laura, let's go to Workshare,
Okay.
to the Workshare program.
Oh, hold on.
That's House Bill 1143 for everybody. We have some amendments to that bill as well.
Yes, sorry, let me pull it up again. Can you all see that? House Bill 1143 reprint. Yes. Okay.
Now,
No?
no, I said now we can.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So this is the bill that makes various changes to the state's work sharing program. The work sharing program is basically a layoff aversion program that the department administers, and it's designed to let employers reduce employees' work by a certain percentage. And so the workers aren't necessarily, they're not laid off, their hours are just reduced. And so in that way, they can still remain on payroll, receive a limited unemployment benefit, and also receive their wages. So let me scroll down. Sorry. Okay, so we walked through the bill last meeting, but the chair, Delegate Carey, wanted to incorporate some of the remarks from the department about federal conformity concerns. So the bill, as introduced, expands the types of workers who are eligible for the work sharing program to include paid interns or apprentices, or individuals who are rehired by an affected unit following temporary closure or layoff due to COVID-19. So you can see on the screen that the amendment removes the reference to paid intern or apprentice and adds sort of a caveat to the language about workers who are rehired, to say that the workers who are rehired, currently they are covered under CARES Act. And so I guess the state the department may be able to speak more precisely to their testimony or the letter that we received yesterday, but it's my understanding that the state is giving flexibility to employers who are rehiring workers. There's a requirement in the statute that a worker be continuously on payroll in order for that worker to be eligible, to have the work share participation. So in drafting this, I tried to sort of recognize that the rehired workers would be covered under work share, subject to the flexibility for non-continuous employment that's provided under federal guidance. The department may, have thoughts as to how we could word that differently, or maybe they feel that needs to be, those workers shouldn't be included regardless. But it seemed to me that there was potential for allowing workers who are rehired for a limited period of time to be participating in work share.
Delegate Arons has a question.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. Hopefully we'll remain friends after today. I do appreciate your patience with me.
No.
No, I'm teasing you. The question I still want to remain friends. Don't misunderstand that.
We'll
Laura,
always be friends.
if you look at this bill and you say that does Beacon have the ability to do this today? To perform a partial payment?
Yes, so the UI system is currently doing the work share program. This bill is designed to increase participation in the program.
Right. Okay.
So it was going to expand the types of workers who would be eligible to participate in the program. The amendments are sort of limiting that to say that interns and the apprentices would not be covered because the department said that would present a federal conformity problem. And then the bill as introduced also set a goal of participation in the work share program of 4%. The department said in the letter that it submitted to the subcommittee that having a static participation rate does not serve the goals of the program, which is to help employers during periods of economic downturn. So Delegate Carey has offered an amendment to remove the 4%.
Okay, my other comment on this is, and I think both ways on this as an employer and employee, is there a way to protect more? Because I look at this as saying, if I want to keep somebody on and they don't want to work so much, I can almost make you a part-time paid employee at the expense of unemployment. And that may get I think there's an opportunity to abuse that as an employee or employer. It sounds like I could abuse that. And that's something I don't know how to address that or where I see that, other than the fact that if I have 20 people working for me and I only want to keep so-and-so, I can sit down and say, hey, why don't you do me a favor? Why don't you go play for a little while, give you partial unemployment, let you work a couple days a week. You can have that and go away. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, maybe, Mr. Chair, the department could chime in about what they are looking for when they review applications. But I know the department has to review an employer's application and determine whether participation in the program is appropriate. Currently, the work share benefits are 100% federally funded. So it's actually great for the state when employers participate because we're getting the unemployment benefits are from the federal dollars and the employees are remaining on payroll. But perhaps the department could speak more to what they look for when they're reviewing applications.
Well, I would hope we're looking at taking federal dollars, not like that's a free pass, because that is still tax dollars. I hope they're looking at that when they do it. I'm not sure they are, but that's something they could address.
So I see that we have a Deputy Secretary Dana Freeman here from.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm assuming you can answer that for us.
Yeah, we have stringent criteria in our selection process on what businesses can avail themselves of the work share program. And, during the pandemic, we have denied applications for those very reasons, where it looks like they're trying to abuse it or not be in the spirit of what the work share program is all about. So we scrutinize all the applications, have talked to the employer, see what their intent is, and we go employee by employee to see. But we have encountered that actual circumstance during the pandemic about employers trying to abuse this. And maybe they wanted to shut down, or during a period so everybody could have a break, we want to utilize the work share program, and we saw right through that.
I don't want you to misinterpret my comment as something I'm doing, okay? Because I don't
All
have
right,
any
all right.
currently.
What goes on in committee stays in committee, right?
Well, actually, we're live and we're live. So
Yeah.
I'll just
Oh,
say
that's
that.
right.
So,
We're out on the web.
but I will call you later. I'm kidding.
In case everybody didn't know that the revolution is being televised.
That's true, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand it. It's just it is a concern, and I think we do open up Pandora's box on some of these things. And with all due respect, you guys are busy, and now we're adding another busier piece to you, because that is taking up some things that I think that would take up a lot of my time personally, because I believe there's a lot of people that think like that out there, more than I care.
We actually stood up a unit for work share. We have a specialized unit for our work share, reemployment, and trade activities. And my deputy assistant secretary personally reviews every application and scrutinizes them, and he's versed and steeped in that. So we do have resources to make sure this program is being administered in a responsible way.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Deputy Secretary Freeman.
Thank you, Chairman Carey.
Delegate Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I mean, I guess, again, I would just ask Laura just two questions. One, can you just briefly describe what the bill does now that it's amended? And two, do you believe that the amendments generally address the department's concerns? Because
Yes, so I had not finished walking through the amendments yet, so this
Oh,
will be
sorry.
good for, no, I'm glad we're having the question. So I'll just quickly recap what the amended bill would do. So the amended bill would expand the types of workers who are eligible to participate in work share to include an individual who is rehired by an affected unit following temporary closure or layoff due to COVID-19 pandemic, sort of subject to the flexibility that the department may have under federal guidance. The bill would also require the department to ensure that work sharing applications, that they have the adequate staff or sufficient staff and resources to process a complete application within 10 days after receipt. Complete is being added based on the department's letter that they submitted that, I guess sometimes they don't get complete applications, and then they would be held to the standard where they don't have all the materials they need to approve an application. The bill also changes the percentages of work hours that can be reduced as part of the work share program. Current state law is 20% to 50%. Federal law allows states to have work share programs with 10% to 60%. So this change would bring sort of the state in line with what's allowed under federal law. And then the bill also, with the amendment, let's see. So the bill requires within 30 days of its enactment for the department to send a notice to all employers of record who've paid UI taxes during the immediately preceding year about their eligibility to participate in work share program. The bill also requires the department to contract with a professional marketing and communications firm to develop and implement basically a work sharing marketing campaign. The bill says that the value of the contract could be for up to $500,000, And there's amendment language that you can see here after line 23, that it makes it clear that the department could utilize money from the Relief Act to hire this marketing firm. The Relief Act included $1 million for the department to hire a marketing firm. So this makes it clear that those funds could be leveraged for the purpose in the bill. And then the bill sort of sets out eligibility criteria for the firm that would be hired and some sort of benchmarks for the marketing campaign. And that's the bill basically with the amendments.
So the department was participating in those amendments.
Yes, and I don't want to speak for them, especially because they're actually on the call, but I did work with Delegate Carey in trying to incorporate the department's feedback in the letter we received yesterday. So I don't know if the chair wants to allow them to speak on it.
Yeah, I mean, if Secretary Freeman has any additional comments she'd like to make, yeah, when we received the letter yesterday, we went through the bill and we amended it to include some of their comments.
Yeah, Laura, I could address that.
Okay, great.
Sure. No, the amendments do appear to address the concerns that we provided in that letter. So we thank the chairman for incorporating those. The only point I would add is in the language that you referenced about the flexibility for the work share program there. We did ask for a formal conformity opinion from USDOL on that. So we might get some more clear guidance here in the next few days, but it does appear to address that issue about the rehires. Yeah, that section right there. I don't know if Dana, if you had any additional input, but that, as you mentioned, USDOL has given us flexibility just in the environment of this pandemic for rehiring because it kind of alters the intent of the program. So right now we do have that flexibility, but we anticipate that going away post the crisis, and that would then take our program potentially out of conformity. So I believe that language addresses it, but we are expecting to get a formal opinion from USDOL.
Great.
Mr. Chairman, do you want to move this bill?
Yeah, I would like to.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to accept the amendments.
Is there a second on the amendments? I see Delegate Impalaria. Are you seconding?
And
Oh,
yeah, and I have
thank
a
you,
question.
Delegate Rogers. On the amendments, Delegate Impalaria?
Well, yeah, it's the $500,000 for a marketing firm. I just don't understand why that's necessary. The department has the ability to, whether they're sending out by email the billing or if they're doing it by mail, just adding a slip in there explaining this new program. I don't know why we need $500,000 to market that, and how much of that would go to the firm just to pay their salaries, or how much would actually benefit the businesses. So I don't know why we need $500,000 in there when they're mailing out bills to these companies, they're emailing bills to these companies. There are tons of ways that they can notify them within the department without spending $500,000 of the taxpayers' money. So I don't know, especially for something that we should be sunsetting, So that's,
Well,
it shouldn't go on forever.
the work share program is not going to sunset. I mean, they currently do it. And it's going to go on in perpetuity. So, I say in perpetuity, it's going to go on beyond the pandemic. And the marketing was just, is a campaign to bring awareness. We can do this. I understand your concerns about the cost. But again, those funds were in the relief program. So again, the whole idea was people don't really know, employers don't really know about the program. This was to just bring some notice to the program that, hey, it's out there. Will it cost $500,000? I don't know. I think I'm not sure. I just don't know.
And I agree with Delegate Ernst that the more you promote something like that, the more someone's going to try to take advantage of it, that it benefits their pocket and hurts the UI insurance. And that's my concern. That's why I say if it was just part of, the regular billing cycle, that people understood it was there if they want to take advantage of it, I don't have problems with, but I've said my piece.
And although I understand your concerns, I mean, the whole work share program is to keep people working. It's to keep people employed. And if I'm a business and I have a really good employee, a couple of really good employees, and I got to let one of them go, if I can kind of share them to keep them, that benefits me as a business owner. That's the thought behind all of this. So.
Mr. Chair, I had a question actually, if it's okay to ask the department.
Sure.
So it got me thinking, so this is authorizing a contract to have a value of up to $500,000, but the Relief Act had $1 million for this marketing campaign. So perhaps the Assistant Secretary or Andrew could chime in. Would the contract sort of limit in this bill in any way impair your ability to use the full funding under the Relief Act?
As written, this is Dana. Let me see, I'll put myself. As written, it would limit it because we are receiving $1 million in marketing funds from the Relief Act. And we've already procured and did an RFP to find a marketing concern. The purposes of the money was to raise awareness of the work-share program throughout the state. And we pretty much are down the path, and we've already contracted with a marketing concern to do a public awareness campaign.
How much is that contract for, if I may
You're
ask?
going to ask me now, so don't make me lie on live TV, but I don't know the value of that contract, but I'm pretty sure it's higher than $500,000. I can get that back to you.
Okay.
The actual amount.
So Laura, I don't see Laura. Oh, there's Laura.
Yeah.
You scared me for a second, Laura. I'm like, where's Laura? So what do we have to do, Laura? Do we have to tweak that language then? Can you? I'm not sure Laura's with us.
No, her system doesn't work.
He's frozen.
I think she's
Yeah.
frozen.
She may have to hop off and come back in.
If you want, I'll take over for her.
No.
There she is.
Hey,
I don't know what happened.
well,
Did anyone else's connection go out or just mine?
Just
just
yours.
yours, Laura. You
That has
scared
never
me.
happened before. I'm so sorry.
It kicked me too.
You scared me. I looked and it was blank and I'm like, where's Laura? And then we could
Yeah,
see.
okay. I'm so sorry for that. I've never experienced that problem before.
And Laura, after you blanked, the picture of Delegate Aaron's popped up in your place, and we were really worried then.
Well, the only person I could see the first time they let me back in was Delegate Aaron's. So I don't know.
That's scary.
I took control of the co-host. So you know, so. Everybody else is on notice now, so keep that in mind.
See that?
Mr. Chairman, are you asking for an amendment to change that dollar amount to?
Well, yeah, Laura, that's what I was asking Laura. Laura, based on that, do we have to change part of that part?
I'm wondering if that should say a contract maybe up to 1 million, because or it just not even say that at all, because the Relief Act specifically,
Yeah, I would take it
has
out.
$1 million. So yeah.
Yeah,
I think
I
that's
might not
actually-
say it.
Okay. So
Is that CARES money federal dollars?
Yeah.
It's not. Sorry. Were you asking me?
I'm sorry, the CARES Act money for this marketing program was federal.
Oh.
Federal dollars. Okay.
Yeah. We wrote a supplemental budget request and got awarded that. And any state that enacted work share provisions during the pandemic could avail themselves of this marketing fund.
So it's not costing our taxpayers anything to offer the program, but if we don't do this amendment, then we're not able to take advantage of the federal dollars that we could leverage in this way, I guess.
If I may clarify, so as our assistant secretary is referring to, is we already have a contract with federal dollars that came through the CARES Act. What's being referred to in this bill is the Relief Act funding, and that is $1 million of state funds, and that is separate and in addition to what the department has already contracted for.
So
But that was already included in the Relief Act. So if this bill says the contract may be for up to $500,000, then that potentially leaves $500,000 in limbo. Correct? Is that what we were discussing when I got kicked off?
That's correct. Yes.
Yes. So
Okay.
am I getting this straight that there's $1 million in federal money for this, and there's $1 million in state money for this, which is $2 million? Is that the way I'm now being explained this, that there's the $1 million from the feds, and this is $1 million also from the bill that was just passed for the relief here?
So
It's a $2 million. That's my question.
is that what you're saying, Andrew?
So what I'm saying is the money that Dana referred to, our assistant secretary, about the contract we currently have is being paid for through a federal grant monies. That's not what I think was referred to in this legislation. This legislation refers to Relief Act funding. I believe, and I know Dana said we get that, I believe the contract is for somewhere in the $700,000 range. That's federal funds, and that's separate from what's being discussed in the Relief Act. The Relief Act is up to $1 million in state funds that could be used for this marketing campaign.
So that is $2 million. So $2 million could be used to advertise this program, and I just think that's ridiculous. That $1 million, I thought 500,000 was too much. You're saying you already have $1 million from the feds, so I don't think we should be. It sounds to me like we didn't need the $1 million from the state. That we already have $1 million from the Fed, so why are we putting that in there? And I mean, can you do this with the $1 million you already have from the feds? Do you need the additional $1 million?
Is that a question for the department?
Yeah, for the department.
Yes.
Yes.
So there is a provision in the Relief Act. There's a clawback provision, if you will, that says the state funds, is particularly for this initiative, if there are federal funds that are already being used, that any state funds appropriated in the Relief Act would revert back to the general fund. So this may be an instance where that would apply.
So what I'm hearing you say, Andrew, is that you have the $1 million, you're using 700,000 of it. You probably don't need the state money. It's supposed to revert back. So we shouldn't have anything in this bill about money whatsoever to advertise this, because you already have an amendment to remove all dollars from this because you already have the money. That's my feeling on it. And I would like to make that type of amendment that I think $1 million is more than enough. It's coming from the feds, and they should be able to use that money wisely, and they don't need another $1 million from the state, let alone 500,000. So if I thought 500,000 was too much, I definitely believe 2 million is too much. So can we amend this bill, Laura, to make it that there's no state funds to advertise it because they already have the money, as I'm understanding.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Ross from
yes, madam.
DLS, the fiscal,
Yes.
had his hand kind of up, and I don't know if maybe
Oh,
the fiscal analyst may be able to
Steve.
help with this.
Sorry. Hi, Steve Ross, TLS. Andrew kind of addressed some of it. I was going to mention that the million, basically say the $1 million in the Relief Act already basically exists. And in some ways that this bill is basically putting detail to what that would use, because the Relief Act was pretty light. In fact, it was extremely light on just must market work share. So I think just pulling any amount of money and just saying the department using existing funding through state and federal sources, we can specify however you want.
Right.
Would probably work. And then I think I addressed it a little bit, like whether or not it's duplicative in the fiscal note. So I think pulling dollar reference and just referencing existing funding would be the way to go.
Yeah, that's sort of what I was thinking was more, sort of more of a broader, whatever.
Right.
It's, the department can use the funding that exists,
Right.
whatever it is. And obviously the state, if the state decides, and by state, I mean more, not just the department decides that there should be a shift in the budget, then the state can do that.
So,
Limit our use of federal funds.
so
Just in this bill, I think it's probably more appropriate to have sort of a broad statement that, the department can use the marketing funds that are available either through the state or federal government.
okay.
Should it say not to exceed $1 million?
I don't think I'd put a limit on them, only because again, I don't, the limit may change. So, by putting something in statute that is specific like that, it may be that, the next CARES Act that comes down says it's not $1 million anymore. Or the state may decide we're not giving. So I think we need to leave the budget options open in this legislation.
Yeah.
And let the appropriate budget authority make the determinations of what can or can't be used and when.
And
Yeah, Laura.
my feeling
I would
is
agree.
that I'm always afraid of that use it or lose it principle that many agencies have. So, I would hope that they would. So what we're saying is we should trust them to do the right thing and not spend.
You should trust the budget people to do the right thing, yes.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. Delegate Aaron, you had a question?
Well, I just had a comment. I guess my concern would be sort of like what Rick said, but if money's there, we will find a way to use it for something. And I'm just not jumping up and down. I don't think that's always the best way to do it because it will get pushed somewhere else. We see this everywhere in government, nothing against DLS, but if that money is sitting there idly, we'll go after the state money. And that troubles me somewhat. I don't know how to put some brakes on something like this.
Laura?
Mr. Ross, maybe. I don't know.
I guess I think that the subcommittee's in sort of a difficult position because this was already included in the Governor's Relief Act, the $1 million for the marketing campaign. So, I mean, there's potential for you to restrict the amount of the contract with the marketing firm, but you're sort of in this difficult position where the money's already been set aside in this comprehensive, relief bill. So
Is it too difficult to protect $1 million of taxpayer money? That's what I'm trying to look at. I'm not saying you stop it. I'm just sitting down saying you need to at least have a balance with that to say we're not going to go grab that to pay another bill, which I don't know about you all, but I've seen it happen once or twice in the General Assembly. So, and I agree with that. I think we need to do this stuff, but I think you also have to be prudent with the dollars. And I don't know how you do that. Maybe that's, maybe Mr. Ross knows how that's done. Maybe Laura knows how it's done.
Could we do something where it says that to get the additional $1 million for this type of advertising for this program, they have to get the approval of the, the governor, the comptroller, and the treasurer go through that board to get that approval to go and use the extra money? That would be a protection. Then it would have to be approved. We're not taking it away. We're just saying it's sitting there, and before you can spend it, you have to go before the Board of Public Works to get the rest of it.
But Laura,
I'm asking the question.
yeah, I
You
was
had a
just going to say
response?
that the department may be able to speak to what procurement steps they have to go through when they're, getting this marketing firm to work with them. But they would probably be able to speak more to that. But I would assume that there would be procurement, requirements they'd have to meet as any state contract would have to meet.
Yeah, who can answer that from the department? Andrew or Dana? Looks like Andrew.
Dana, are you able to address that about procurement question?
So I didn't hear it fully, Laura, because we did procure this vendor we're using now. We went through the typical RFP process.
Delegate Impalario was asking, I guess, what procurement steps the state would go through potentially with this additional $1 million in state funding. If there's a way of having some kind of quality control measures for how the money is being utilized.
Well, with procurements, we have to always put the scope of the work, and that would be the first way you could put the guardrails on, as you're speaking of what the uses of the money are. And so that's the vehicle that you would use to control that. And then, of course, being in operations, I never want to spend all the money. I want more for less, right? I don't know if that's everybody's approach to it, but I want to get a bunch for nothing. And what can you throw in for free? That's my philosophy for how, ideal in procurement world.
And we agree with you, but some people's feeling is, I could do a great job for $1 million, but I could do a super fantastic job for $2 million. And that's, I think, the concern that we have.
Well, the other thing is we don't tell the vendors in the RFP process, I have $1 million to spend. We tell them, here's the parameter.
Now they know.
Right, but we're not, this is what we need. How much can you do it for?
Right.
And then, that process is about the lowest. You have all these criteria to select the vendor. And the technical criteria is considered first and ranked. And then you open up the financials and go with the lowest. So I think the current procurement process would facilitate and assist in keeping those guardrails in.
Okay.
So the money spent properly.
Okay. Thank you, Dana. Now I see Delegate Adams has a question, raising his hand. Delegate Adams.
So I'm looking at the department's testimony on this, and because I know you're going to try, we need to try to wrap this up. But the department's saying that in 2020 there were 247 work share plans, and that in 2019 there were just 2 plans. And so it appears that for this program to work, people need to find out about it. I'm an employer that didn't have a clue that this program existed. I don't know that it would have ever applied, but the question I think the department's trying to ask and answer, increasing awareness of the work share program, is there other ways other than just paying UI benefits for someone not to work to give people a better opportunity without spending as much of the state dollars at UI. What I will say, Mr. Chairman, is I think on the table is my motion to amend the bill prior to this discussion with the money. And I think I'm going to have some concerns that fall with Steve and Rick on this. I would ask that we move that amendment, and then if you want to have a separate amendment on this money conversation, because I'm reading other parts of this statement from the department that talks about how this money might be duplicative, and I don't want to ramble on about it, but I think it's 2 separate conversations. So if Mr. Chairman, you would why don't we take that amendment and let's try to move that one and then try to do this other one separately.
So on the amendment, Laura, you repeat the amendment?
The amendment, I'm afraid to share a screen that I'm going to get kicked off again. But the amendment was, I believe, to remove the reference in the bill that the contract may be valued at up to $500,000 because Assistant Secretary Freeman said that would potentially restrict their ability to use the full funding provided for under the Relief Act.
Okay, so that's the amendment. So I guess, God, I'm having a.
Can I clarify something? This is Dana again.
Hold on a second, Dana.
Sure.
So did we move the amendment?
I made a motion. I made that motion, yes.
Is there a second to move the amendment?
Well, can I make a suggestion? This is super complicated, and I know Laura would like to give a clean-cut amendment. Can we hold off on voting on this bill and discuss it at the next meeting, or do we have to do it today?
No, we can we can hold off on it, but I want to, we've got an amendment. Is there a second on the amendment to remove the dollars?
To remove the dollars totally? Yeah, we can
Laura,
do that. I got a second for that.
okay. So that now we're going to discuss the amendment again. I know that Dana had a comment. Dana?
I was just going to say that the wording Relief Act, I thought you were talking about the CARES Act, but it was the States Relief Act. And if you could just put the formal name of what Relief Act you're referring to, that may clarify a lot.
Mr. Chairman, that's exactly where I was headed with that. And
Okay.
Thus the confusion, because what I'm reading here is that there was a $1 million grant that was the Relief Act, which is different than the CARES Act, which is different than just having
Exactly.
and bill that. So what Rick's saying is we've got like now 3 sources of potential monies. We're trying to narrow this down, and that's where I was getting hung up. And I was not going to be able to support something I think the committee was getting ready to do in that regard.
I'm sorry, Delegate, you zoned, I didn't hear what you said. You were in and out.
The vice chairman had a good amendment on this money, and that's my observation on that.
Okay, and that's what
I mean,
we're voting on.
Yeah.
That's the amendment on the floor under discussion. So if there isn't any other discussion on the amendment, let's vote on the vice chairwoman's amendment.
And
I'm
can you
gonna-
clarify, have you moved on from, you've already adopted the amendment that takes out the reference to $500,000. I thought that was the vice chair's amendment. Is there an additional?
No,
I think you need to vote on Delegate Adams' amendment about it was moved and seconded, but I don't think there was a vote on removing the 500,000.
Okay, you're right. There was no vote on it.
The next.
right,
piece.
so that's where we are. So all of those, seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of removing the amendment, raise your hand.
Removing the reference to the 500,000. Yeah.
Exactly. Raise your hand.
Okay.
Any opposed? Seeing the motion, it carries unanimously. So I would say that, we're beyond our time now. We've gotten through a couple of bills. I think we'll have to schedule another meeting to come back and finish this bill as well as the other bills that we have. We have the accountability bill, the income disregard bill, we have Delegate Charkoudian's bill, and we have Delegate Weibel's bill that we've got to discuss. So we'll schedule another subcommittee meeting sometime this week.
And if I can Laura, you kind of know where we were going with this.
Mhm.
Try to craft a couple different ways of, some thoughts of how you can draft it up to protect that other money.
The money.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it should just say may use funding under the Relief Act or federal as provided by the federal government.
Yeah, and get back, you don't have to give us an answer now because it seems like the money was coming from more than one pot. So we should also know exactly where all the money is coming from. So
Right.
we're originally talking about 1 million, then we found out it was 2 million. There might be some more. So I think we need clarification on that.
So what we'll do
Sorry,
is,
go ahead.
yeah, we'll get some clarification and we'll get it to the subcommittee. And then again, we'll take this up at our next subcommittee meeting. Delegate Aarons, did you have a comment before we adjourn?
Yes, sir. I was just asking if somebody from the department, my concerns early on when we first started talking, if somebody would like to have a discussion with me, because I'd just like to put that in my stomach to rest as we move forward, because it could have some bearing on how I approach the rest of the bills we're looking at. If somebody be kind enough to talk to me about it, or if you want me to give somebody a call, is there anybody out there who would volunteer from Department of Labor?
Andrew will.
I'm happy to give you a call, Delegate.
Great. I will give you a call or you can give me a call, but I'll talk to you sometime today. I'll try you. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. So for right now, seeing no further business, is there a motion to adjourn? And we will second. We'll be back in touch. We'll meet again this week and work on the rest of these bills that remain. So with that, I will see you all, some of you on the floor. And if not, I'll see you all in committee later today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.